Are you a Catholic gal who is desperate, or maybe not desperate, but definitely wants to be asked out on more dates? Well, you may want to get married one day, and the dating world seems to be against you. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to get asked out on more dates as a Catholic girl in 2026. And if we have never met yet, my name is Laura Jean. I am the founder of Let's Be Saints Co., who is sponsoring this video. And I talk to women all day about becoming the leading lady in their lives and helping actually prepare them and enable them to do that so that one day they can live their lives in amazing marriages that are happy, healthy, and holy, and that get them to heaven. So if that sounds like something that you want to be involved with, I'm glad you found me and I'm glad that you're here. So today we're going to really talk about how to get asked out on dates as a Catholic gal in 2026. Full disclosure, I am also a single gal navigating this dating landscape. And I can tell you with my full chest that it is hard. It is a hard dating landscape to navigate these days. But I want to talk about something that will actually give you a better perspective and actually give you a little bit of clarity around why it feels hard. Okay, so first of all, we're not denying that the dating world today is, especially in the Catholic kind of sphere, is struggling. Okay, we are not denying that. I see so many people, kind of dismissing people who are single today, their experience, because, oh, it can't possibly be that bad, or it wasn't that bad when I was doing it 10 years ago. You're just overthinking it, or, just wait until you find your person, you won't care, right? And I hear that advice, and to be honest, it makes me want to just shake it out of them that, like, you don't understand. If you're not single in this landscape today, you don't understand what it's like. So first of all, we are not denying the actual hardships that are present in the dating world today. We're not denying that. But what we are going to challenge today is that the problems in the dating world are not just happening to you. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean that we have a role in this. And I'm not saying that you're the problem. I'm not saying that you are the reason that the whole dating, landscape is as bleak as it is. But what I am saying is that far too many people, if not everyone, has this mindset that it is just a dumpster fire and it's happening to us and we have no control over it, and that we are victims to this as well. And so no one is doing anything about it. Okay? And the reality is that it's not the platforms, it's not the way that we're meeting people, it is the people themselves that have really enabled this landscape that we're in. Whether it be, their life experience and the rise of the internet and people just really not actually knowing how to form relationships, meaningful relationships intentionally with one another as adults. That is very much a part of it. But on the flip side, we've kind of taught ourselves that as long as we're talking behind a screen, that it doesn't really matter because the person's not in front of us, right? I don't know if you've ever had the experience of you're having a conversation with someone in person and you're just like, your mind in real time is like, oh, that's not what I was imagining. Oh, like there's more to them, or oh, there's like something that I didn't consider. But when you're home and you're sitting on your couch, you have this narrative of what's happening according to your side, but also you're thinking up this whole person. And so you're putting thoughts in their head and you're, filling in the gaps that you don't have all the information yet. And so when you're talking via text or just snippets, right? You're filling in all the other information, and that is not allowing the person to show you who they are, but instead you are typically filling in the whole idea. And so it is not just a problem that is happening to us. And in fact, the dating landscape is made up of individual people. Yes. And so when we take responsibility for our part in it, we make the dating world better, one person at a time. Now, that's all we can control, and that is all we ought to control, but we ought to do it. And here's the thing, our lives, we have this really big, powerful thing in our lives, and that is that we have so much more say over our lives than we think we do. Okay. And what I mean by this is that there are circumstances that come along that threaten to take our say in something. There are people whose voices are louder than ours that, do something to us or tell us something that makes us shrink back and not believe ourselves as much, right? There are all these situations and experiences that have taught us that actually the way that we interact with the world, the way that things are coming at us is more real than what we are outputting. Okay? Follow me on this. The inputs are more important than what is outputted. This looks like a lot of different ways. In high school, this might have looked like, does this friend group like me? It only matters what they think of me, not what I think of myself, not how I'm presenting myself, but instead, do they accept me in the way that I'm presenting myself, right? And so it really starts from a young age. And it's hard to kind of, in the first place, even acknowledge that this is what's happening, let alone be able to backtrack and figure out, okay, wait a second, where does my say as the leading lady of my life and my role in my own life, my autonomy, where does that kick in versus what everyone else has told me or how I've, had different experiences? Like, what does that balance look like? And that's an important question for every person to come to at some point in their lives and figure out. Yes. And the only way that this knowledge is actually going to transform that person's life is if they come to that conclusion, that they have a say over their lives. Let me tell you a quick story. When I was in grad school, I was always this person who, I didn't really care what people thought necessarily. What mattered more was what I knew I had to do, what was my calling. I was really living that way. And in fact, so much so that I had left my life here in the States and I had moved abroad because I knew that that was what I was called to. I wasn't afraid to do the big crazy thing if it had to be the big crazy thing or the little thing, whatever it was, I was doing it and I was loving it. I was so much at peace with where I was, with what I was learning, with the experiences that I was experiencing. I just knew that was where I was supposed to be. And it wasn't until there was this massive life circumstance that kind of cut the rug from under me. While I was studying abroad, I got really sick and we couldn't figure it out for several months. And so I was flying back and forth to the States and trying to figure it out. And we finally figured it out. And it wasn't until 7 months in that I got a diagnosis. But I was struggling with this, and the hardest part was I knew what I was called to, and what I was doing, what I was living was the thing that I wanted to be doing. And yet this life circumstance, this illness came out of nowhere and took that from me. I had to move back to the States to get treatment. I was in treatment for a very long time, like an aggressive treatment. And this illness impacted so much of my life. And so much of my life that I lost the ability to read and write, which is absolutely crazy. And as an academic, as someone who was studying, that was not only like, oh, my future and what I was hoping to do, kind of like, we might have to rethink that, but like my very identity as someone who was learning and growing and wanting to change the world with my brain and with my mindset and with my God-given gift of my intellect, that was like drastically not an option. And that was a crazy experience. And something that I learned through that experience is that there are circumstances that do threaten to take these massive things away from us, but they don't have to have the last word. Okay? Because it wasn't until I realized that this illness didn't have to have the last word that I started actually taking back control of my life. Something that happens when you get really, really sick is that your control of your life is like absolutely gone. You're at the mercy of the symptoms that day. You're at the mercy of your doctors. You're at the mercy of your medication. You're at the mercy of literally people helping you to function and live. It's really humbling, if I'm being honest. And it wasn't until recently, and I'd given into this in a lot of ways because I'm human, and like I also was not strong enough, like physically or mentally, emotionally, to really stand up to those circumstances. There's a very real aspect of being so ill that you actually do not have those faculties. And so it took me a really long time, but I got to a point where I realized like enough is enough. I am always going to be living with this. And yes, I have healed much from where I was, but I'm still not healed. And so it's like, okay, I can let my life be narrated by this. I can be in bed every day. I can listen to the symptoms as they are gospel truth. I can give in to everything. Or I can stand up and I can say, enough is enough. And I will experience symptoms every single day of my life. And I will experience circumstances that threaten the stability that I'm trying to build. And yet I'm going to get up and I'm going to try anyway. And that is what I have done. And last year in 2025 was my word of the year was consistency. And it was really this battle of like, can I get to the point where I can be consistent in my outputs, even amidst all these things going on. And it was such a cool thing to focus on that for so long and to have that such a focus, because now I have so much trust in myself, and I know that no matter the circumstance, I can still trust myself, and I know that I can be proud of whatever I can put out into the world, even amidst whatever circumstance. And why I bring all that up is because we can so often be that that victim to the circumstance of the dating world of like, it's a dumpster fire, right? No one is being intentional, and they match with you, but they won't message you. And then when they message you, it's all nasty and they're going too far, too fast. And it's like all these things, right? And we can sit there and we can be a victim of that circumstance. And we can be saying, oh, well, I'm never going to find anyone because this is all that's out there. And you have to refuse to believe that that's true. You have to refuse that that is true, because that is part of it that does exist. But when we choose to believe and that we are actually creating a different reality by us showing up differently, We are hoping that we are going to get something different. You know what the definition of insanity is? It is literally doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That is the definition of insanity. So if we continue to go in and just show up on the dating apps or show up at the events and just kind of sit back and wait for someone to approach us, wait for someone to knock our socks off, we are going to get the same thing. We're going to get the low effort. We're going to get the non-committal. We're going to see the people on the dating apps who, have no business hiding behind a phone, right? Okay, there's all these things that we will experience. But if we do something different, if we are the ones who change, if we are the ones who show up differently for ourselves and for others, and we intentionally build relationships differently, a different result is possible for us. So that's what we're keeping in mind. Okay, so I actually have 3 things that we can do today as women, as Catholic women, to help us in a way, like, yes, it will open us up to getting asked out on more dates. Yes, that is a result that can come from this, but it's also really helping us become that leading lady in our lives. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with this leading lady, I encourage you to go back and watch some of my other videos or listen to some of my other podcast episodes where I talk about that. And I will talk about it more, but we don't have time to go into that in this video. But a leading lady really is someone who is not a side character in their own life. They understand that they have an intellect and a will, and that their life is not happening to them. They are in this, they are leading, they are the main character of their lives. And it's not a grasping of a control of like, I'm going to do whatever I want with my life, but it's really co-creating their life with the Lord. We are creative as our Creator is creative. And so we want to co-create our lives with God. We want Him and us to be writing our story together. And that is how we can step into the woman we were always created to be. Because I can tell you right now that God did not create you to sit on your own and to have things happen to you without any activity. We are active creatures, and so we need to be active in our lives. We need to take this seriously. Okay, stepping off my soapbox of the leading lady for a minute, we are going to talk about these 3 things. First, be intentional about making yourself available. Okay, it's not just make yourself more available, show up on more apps or show up to more events. Be intentional about how you're making yourself available. Whether that is getting really intentional in your dating app profiles, whether that is going to events where like it's not just an event, but that a person that you might be attracted to might be at, right? And it's also making yourself available, not in the way that all access to you is possible, but being intentional about what access you have to you is available. What do I mean by this? Okay, I personally do not think it's appropriate or good or really conducive to actually starting an intentional relationship by texting back and forth on a dating app ad nauseum. Okay, I do not think that that is the best way. So for me, for example, is I have on my profiles, I have in there, and I tell people as I'm talking to them, hey, I would much rather hop on the phone, meet you up in person, whatever that may be. I am open for that. What I'm not open for and available for is to respond or to receive messages on these apps at all hours of the day. I am not going to be on there every time a message comes in. I am going to be intentional with my time. And I'm going to be intentional with how I'm made available. I am more available for phone calls. Okay, hello, call me up, or let's meet up and get coffee. Whatever the case may be, it doesn't have to be really drastic. It doesn't have to be a 5-hour dinner date, okay? But it's just having those boundaries and sticking to them. You don't have to be available in the way that the dating app, culture makes you feel like you have to be available, okay? That's really important. So figure out what that is for you and then be intentional about that availability. Number 2, be true to yourself. This really goes along with being the leading lady in your life. You don't want to have made up your mind in one way and let someone influence you in a way that you're going around that boundary that you had set, right? Or for example, that availability. If someone's expecting you, like, I've gotten this message before. It's like, you didn't text back. Like, a text literally takes 2 seconds. Yes and no. Like, yeah, texting takes 2 seconds to respond, but at the same time, it takes so much mental energy. It takes getting out of whatever you were doing. And then, the science behind every time you look at your phone, your attention is on that for the next 2 minutes of whatever you're doing. So it's really disruptive. It's not as simple as responding in 2 minutes, okay? And this also looks like trusting your gut, okay? When something doesn't feel right, or something is drawing you towards something that you can't really quite explain. That's really important. Upholding your boundaries, like I said, trust yourself, be true to yourself. And then also show up as show up as yourself, not someone you imagine they would want. Okay. For all of us millennials out there, I don't know how many Gen Z are watching this and or have seen this movie, but if you've ever seen 27 Dresses, you know how that turns out. You know how it turns out when you try to be the person that you think that they want. Okay? And it doesn't work. Okay? That's just the long and short of it. It does not work. You have to be yourself. You have to show up as yourself. Your quirkiness, your uniqueness, what makes you different, that's all really important. And if you're, into these first interactions, for example, it's even more important, arguably, because whether or not someone's going to choose to continue to talk to you or continue a conversation or continue a relationship, it's important that you are represented as you. Yeah, it's really important. Okay. Third, so first was be intentional about making yourself available. Second is be true to yourself. And third, it's be interested and interesting. Okay? And it's funny, by being an interesting person, you actually grow in that interest by being interested. Okay, what does that mean? Be really interested in the person that you're getting to know. Ask them a ton of questions, and not like interview, like waiting for the answer and like whatever, but more so just like be genuinely interested in their life. Be interested in other things, hobbies, literature, books, topics, whatever the case may be. Be interested in these things. It's going to make you a more interesting person. The more things that you are asking questions about and getting curious about and learning about, it's making you more interesting. Okay? Really important. Be interested and be interesting. I mean, it's super important for any part of life, okay? And lastly, I want to talk about, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, these are really great tips, and they're in a way that I can, take them and start living them, and that's awesome. If you're looking for a little bit more, I really invite you to join the Bridesmaid to Bride Challenge. This video and this podcast is sponsored by the Bridesmaid to Bride Challenge, and it is 3 days of stepping into that leading lady. It is 3 days of uncovering those sneaky beliefs that are keeping you in that side character, that bridesmaid energy, instead of being that leading lady and stepping into the person who can be pursued and be able to be in the relationship that is leading towards marriage. Okay, this is really important. And for 3 nights, they're all in the evening, it's going to be such a good conversation. And so if that is interesting to you at all, the link to join is in the description or the show notes. And it's just going to be a really wonderful time to surround yourself by women on the same journey. This can be really a lonely time. Ask me how I know. And so by being surrounded by other women on the journey, we can actually propel ourselves faster and with more motivation when we see that there are others out there striving for the same things we are, as good Catholic women in 2026 who are not looking to cut corners or to get the easy way out, but actually to step into the leading lady of our own lives, which, by the way, takes work. But we don't have to do this on our own either. We can do this with support and with one another, and that's what this challenge is all about. So join us in the challenge, and I really encourage you to take these things that we talked about today to heart and realize that the way that the dating world is today is not just something that is happening to you, but that when you are working on yourself and working on how you show up in the dating world, you are making it better one person at a time. I'm cheering for you.